But the key thing here now, one thing, if you do this, one thing, you're going to uncork everything and give a chance to the United States and other nations to survive. That one thing is get this president out of office now. If you don't get him out now, you're probably going to have thermonuclear war, from which very few people will survive. And so it's a choice. We haven't got the guts to throw this bum out of office now when the evidence for it exists. Or are we going to be gutless and get into this kind of hell from which the human species itself might not exist? Do we have the guts to save the world?
Well, how do you get rid of Obama? Because that would cause kind of a breakup of things and allow new ideas to be injected. Because clearly he is narcissistic. Clearly he's constantly partying and in la-la land and playing golf 6 hours a day. I mean, you look at him, he does act like he's completely out of his mind. And
he's a British puppet. He's not an American. That election of his was a big fraud. It was the complications of how this was pulled. But mainly it was British money and British drug money, which was the big factor in flooding him into the presidency. Actually, on the basis of counting the votes in one way, on the Democratic side, he lost the Democratic nomination in fact. But because of a special feature, the way the thing was run, he was put in as the nominee for the election, a Democratic nominee. He shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Well, how does getting rid of Obama help? I mean, how does that help?
I can guarantee you personally that getting rid of Obama in this way, in this time, and you'll save the United States. If you don't do this, if you don't get Obama out now in this time, when the legal basis for doing so exists very clearly, then you're not going to save the United States.
I know, but explain to me the chain reaction. What is that vacuum if this puppet of the corrupt elements of Wall Street and finance capital, if he was removed for all the Fast and Furious, the illegal wars, you know, the mafia stuff, the list goes on and on.
Look at it. The American people hate this guy now. They hate him. And they hate him for good reasons. Huh? There's nothing protecting him. If you take out of his hands the powers of the president, at that instant, you're going to get a sudden change in the United States because the people in the United States are ready for it. The problem is many of them don't have the guts to do what they should do.
Okay, what do we do to get Obama out of there? Because then we get a Biden. I mean, let's say Obama, for corruption charges, whatever, went bye-bye, what happens?
No, you have to remove Obama because he's a dictator. You remove the dictator, and you don't have to worry about these other problems so much. The American people, given the choice now, and the choice is take Obama out of the picture.
So you're saying it's that symbolic symbol of the puppet would-be dictator removed will send shockwaves through the structure. There won't be that executive fear factor. It'll be seen as a blow, a vote against the direction we're going, and will automatically steer energy towards other solutions.
It will also cause elements of the government and key parts of the government to take the action that's needed. And they have, with Obama out, not in the White House, not empowered in the White House, those other elements of our federal government, which I know will act in an appropriate way to end this nonsense. That does not mean we're going to have everything solved automatically, but we're going to have the power of the decision to decide what is done, given back to the American people. And that will happen. The anger in this population, in the U.S. population, against what's being done to them, what has been done to them, they are ready to act. They're not mobilized in their mind as to know how to act. We have to put in their hands the means to act. And once they realize we've given them the means to act and made some suggestions of what the measures are that have to be dealt with in order to bring this about, I can guarantee you, if I weren't as old as I am, I'd be running for president on the basis of filling in the absent term of Obama.
And so you could inject real issues. Now, expanding on this, looking at what's currently happening, I know you have amazing sources in government, the military, you name it. That's been admitted by the Washington Post and others. I mean, again, former head of the National Security Council said you had the best private intelligence network out there. And I'm getting it's through my feelers the same things you're getting. And a lot of it, of course, months later manifests in the mainstream news. So there's major credibility here from my position, your position, our research, our history of giving people factual information. People can debate our analysis of the info, but the info stands on its own. You say you're being told that the military has already said no to launching this new World War III that so many Obama advisors have asked him to launch. So that
the relevant elements into the U.S. command structure. And we're in a situation now where we're dealing with people in other countries as well on this question. We have to. We have to get the coordination. We have significant cooperation for doing what is necessary. Number one, no thermonuclear war, which means no repetition of Libya, no war in Syria, no war against Iran. Because all these wars, if they are allowed to occur, will mean thermonuclear war. Once the trigger is set.
Because now you're on China and Russia's border, yes.
No, not just on that. You've got a situation in which the power to declare war, which is now in the hands of the president, and he's not going to listen to anybody else while he's still president.
It's setting a very dangerous precedent, and just like Hitler, or, of course, we have the examples of other people like Napoleon. Once they start down this road, we can clearly see where it's going. So let me ask you this question. You say in the command structure they're saying no. We knew Fox Fallon did that 4 or 5 years ago. We know there's been other examples. You're saying your military sources are telling you there's already been internal basically rebellions against launching these new attacks.
Well, there's a special group of people who have the authority to put their voice in and to say whether a war should be launched or not, as long as the chance is there, as long as we're not attacked. And now the point is, if this president is in charge, he is going to pull the strings under British orders. It's going to be British orders, but it's going to be American muscle. We have the greatest concentration of thermonuclear warfare capability stationed in the eastern Mediterranean. It's U.S. largely. It has the other jokers in, and also in the Persian Gulf. We have enough thermonuclear power based there to try to take out Asia. And,
and you're right. And by the way, it's admitted, especially in the foreign press, the Russians are buzzing around like an anthill that's been disturbed right now on total defense alert. Let's come back and talk about this straight ahead. And Russia's saying, you move the missiles, we know you've moved into Poland, we're going to go ahead and attack. So, I mean, it's just total red alert right now, and it's because the banksters are making their move. They're making their move, and they are completely crazy. It's like Max Kaiser says, they're suicide bankers. Lyndon LaRouche is our guest. Amazing information. Straight ahead. Lyndon LaRouche is our guest. You were getting back to nuclear war. What does it mean to have the Russians on alert, sending their ships into the Mediterranean? And as you said, they've moved all these U.S. cruisers and subs in with nukes. Like you're saying, the military buildup is not for a conventional war. Please continue.
It's not a conventional war. There is no conventional war. A conventional war is not possible. Actually, since the time when I was launching what became known as the SDI, and the SDI principle, even though the circumstances are modified today by time, nonetheless, the same principle is crucial. There can be no major war on this planet that is involving major powers which does not lead to thermonuclear war. In other words, with Libya, you came up to the edge of it, but it was already the potential back in the 1970s when I first got on doing this thing on the SDI program. Because it was impossible to fight major war with major powers involved that would not lead to thermonuclear war. And that's been the state of affairs since the 1970s.
Well, Cheney tried to do it through NATO with the Russians in 2008. The Russians just rolled mobile nukes in and said and the head of their Joint Chiefs went on TV and said, we're preparing to launch nukes on your forces. And NATO turned back. I mean, what's wrong with NATO?
What's wrong with everybody? But the point is the cowardice. I mean, Reagan twice put up the SDI as a solution. The British stopped it. The United States was considering it. But the British intervened and said, as your big ally, we say no. And that's why Reagan was turned down. Then you got a couple of British agents on Drop-Off and Gorbachev, who were the key figures in Russia and the Soviet Union then, and they were responsible. Gorbachev is still around. He's still a damn nuisance in the world, and a pesky one. He's a British agent. He always was.
Incredible. Lyndon LaRouche, you're with us for 20 more minutes. We got a quick break. The breaks are at the end of the hour and the start. We're going to come back in 1 minute. Explain to us, because I looked it up. You really were instrumental in developing the SDI program. I want to get your view on what your program of SDI would have done to understand this total war concept we're now under. I mean, I genuinely believe what I'm talking about here. And we've predicted and told you everything that's coming. And no amount of trillions of dollars pumped into Europe will stop the rim of this black hole. The banksters know that, and they think they can pose and use the controlled media to come out on top and be our saviors in the crisis they created. And in all these public papers they put out, they say, Obama needs a new Oklahoma City to blame on people. Financial Times of London. They act like we're not even here. Mr. LaRouche, you've studied these people a long time. Is it megalomania, hubris? Or do they really think they're going to win? Why are they so naked in what they do? Get into SDI, where we're going, all of this.
Well, look at the history of the United States. And it actually started in 1620, when some people from England and from probably the Netherlands as well came over to Massachusetts and set into motion what was initially the Pilgrim landing, but then was the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Now, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was crushed by the British at a certain point. But we didn't stop there. We continued to develop the United States. We imported people from Europe and so forth into what became the United States. And we continued from 1620 on through the securing of our freedom, our constitutional freedom. We continued as an alternative to Britain, to the British Empire, which had become an empire in that period. So we were the English-speaking. We drew people from all over Europe at first. And then later we drew from Asia as well in the later part of the period, going into the 20th century. We created in the United States the greatest movement for freedom that mankind has ever known, for the greatest duration, against what was still going on in Europe. It wasn't that the Europeans lacked a culture, European culture, but they lacked an effective culture because their system of government was dominated by the British Empire ever since 1763. The British Empire has dominated Europe with a few brief exceptions through the entire period. They control Africa totally. They controlled and committed mass genocide in India to consolidate their power there. They ran the drug war against China. They organized World War I, but they started already with the assassination of the President of France at that time. So this operation, this empire, this imperial system, which controls Africa as a slave state entirely still today, which controls Europe. For example, today in Europe, in most of Western and Central Europe, no sovereign nation state exists in Western Europe. They all lost their authority to the Euro system, which has no government. The government is the British government, which runs the Euro system. And
then acts like it's being abused by the Euro, but if you look, helped set up the Treaty of Rome in '57 on record.
They run everything. And the point is, it's still us, we because we do represent, and from generation to generation, we die, in time. Everyone dies. But we aren't dead, because we are committed to a principle which lives on after we die. And those of us in the United States who still believe and stand by that principle, which we embedded and expressed in our Constitution, still exists. The problem is, other people become confused, or they're doubtful of their powers. They're doubtful of their ability to intervene. When we make a decision like as I propose we must make in the United States now. Throw this bum out.